Are you looking to sharpen your budgeting skills? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast, where we talk about life, family, and how to afford it. And now, the Budget Couple themselves, Nate and Danielle.
Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast. I'm Nate.
And I'm Danielle.
And this week we're going to be talking about my sister's new house, which sounds awesome. I'm very excited for it. I couldn't be happier. We're going to dive into that a whole bunch here in just a second. But before we do, if you guys have any questions, comments, we've actually gotten some really good ones that we're going to be answering on future episodes here. But if you have anything for us, please drop us a line and let us know. You can visit budgetcouple.com and then go to our contact page and let us know what your questions may or may not be. One other thing we could do to help us out is if you have something nice to say about this show, if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. It helps grow the show and allows us to reach more people. And one final note, something new I'm adding in, if you know somebody who's struggling with budgeting or you think this podcast would be interesting to them, tell them. The best way to grow a podcast and to spread the word is to talk about it. Let somebody know. Word of mouth advertising is amazing. So please let other people know about our show, and we would greatly appreciate it. But with that, let's dive into my sister's new house.
Okay, so we are, as Nate said, very excited for her. It's been a long road. She probably had a harder time with this than what we did. We got very lucky on our house and found it, I think, like our second day out looking.
Something like that. It was crazy fast.
And that was the only offer we put on a house, and we got it right away. So we were lucky. She's had much more of a struggle. Interest rates are higher now, and the market is really a seller's market at the moment, and it's been super hard. So we're happy that she finally found a good fit for her.
She's been outbid, I believe, on 3 houses or 2 houses, and then she won a bid on one of them, but the house, when they did the inspection, was just in such poor shape that she had to not proceed because there's water and foundation issues, and you just can't deal with that when you're a single woman working on a fixed income. It's just not going to happen.
Or single anybody.
That's absolutely true.
Good
in
Lord.
my sister's version, she is a single woman on a fixed income, so she has to go through and do that. But anybody in that situation, if you can afford your house, that's fantastic. You're doing an awesome job, but you just need to make sure you go through a couple of decisions. And my sister, unfortunately, has had a lot of tough decisions to make and has had to walk away or been outbid. But now she's found something.
So what she found actually was not a home that exists. She is actually going with new construction. It's a townhome or townhomes that are going to be built. And this actually has some special considerations that we really didn't know much about. So we've learned through her too about how this goes when you're buying a new construction and not a pre-existing home. So one I think kind of annoying thing is she has to finance through the builder. She doesn't get to go shopping for lenders. And that's something that I feel like is really important when you're going out there to look for a mortgage. You want to shop around a little bit, see what rates you can get, see what the closing costs are, all sorts of things.
With that said, when we got our mortgage, we didn't shop at all. We signed up with our realtor and went right for it because we didn't know any better.
We didn't know any better.
And we should have, but we just kind of went through the process. They made it seem really easy, and it was. And we got the house, so we didn't have to deal with all of the heartache and sorrow of lender issues. But in my sister's situation, the builder requires that they finance through the builder. So she loses that option even if she didn't want to pursue it. She doesn't have an option.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the, I guess, downsides of this, that she just has to go with the lender that they are offering. So there's that. Also, she can choose a bunch of different options, and this is common for new construction where you get to choose the base level and then you get to add on certain things, and that may be anything from a garage to another bedroom to granite countertops or whatever. So she gets to go through all of those options, and she actually has to pay a little bit up front on them when signing the agreement. So maybe it's 25% or something for the floors. So she'll actually owe that money up front, even though the house isn't scheduled to be completed until December. So that's something that she's had to consider. And researching a little bit about this, it seems like what you want to focus on if you're doing this is getting things that are going to be harder to do later on. So if you really want to increase your square footage, do that as an upgrade. Do that as your initial choice, because it's going to be a lot harder to add on that 4th bedroom later on down the road, whereas it's much easier to upgrade to granite countertops on your own. So that's one of the things to think about when you're looking into upgrades. Also, Think about the pricing too. Are you getting a good deal? Is the builder giving you the best deal you could get? Or if you go with the bare minimum and do it yourself later, maybe you're going to be getting a better deal. That's the gamble that she's going to go ahead and take. She's choosing pretty much the minimum all around and is going to save her money and do the updating later. A couple reasons. She doesn't like the choices. That's something that I didn't realize really, or didn't think about, I guess. When you're picking out upgrades for new construction, they may only give you 5 or 6 choices for granite colors or 5 or 6 choices for wood types. And it just might not be something you like. So if you want to really make it your own, then you might want to wait and do it later on. Also, again, the pricing. Think about maybe do some calling and look around, see what pricing is like in your area for contractors. And maybe you could do it yourself much cheaper. So those are just some of the things she's looking at, but we're going to actually dig into a different aspect of this. She had a question for us that she came to us about, and we've done some research and thought about it for her.
So I'm going to round some numbers just for sake of ease, but really the only thing I'm rounding is the purchase price just to make it sound nicer and to be easier to work with. But everything else is pretty much exactly where it's going to be. So her options here, the purchase price of the house is approximately $190,000, which is awesome. Nice price. She can afford it. Great. The thing is that her lender, her builder, should I say, gave her 2 options on a mortgage. The first option is a fixed rate of 4.87%. There is a monthly mortgage that's going to be calculated at $1,660, and then she has to pay 1.5% in closing costs, a lender fee. That's going to equate to basically about $3,000 extra that she's going to have to put down onto her closing cost. Option 2 of their mortgage is a 5.25% interest rate. It's fixed as well, which is perfect. You never want to go with variable rate. Her monthly mortgage is going to be $1,700, and there's no closing costs as far as the lender is concerned. So that $3,000 is totally wiped out. The only closing costs she's going to have are taxes, fees, her realtor's fees, those type of things. But everything else is totally covered, so she saves $3,000 out of her pocket right off the gate. Again, the difference here, there's a higher interest rate, which is going to cost her $40 more a month, versus the lower interest rate, which is going to cost her $3,000 extra out of the gate. So the thought here is, which one do we go with? Because there's definitely pluses and minuses to each, and we're going to talk about those here. So when she asked me this question, my initial response without looking at anything is always to go lower interest rate. The lower the interest rate, the better you can go. And Danielle's nodding her head.
I definitely, the second he told me about this, I was like, obviously the lower interest rate, what are you talking about? But, we did some more math, and I'm actually surprised by the numbers.
Yeah, so let's talk about those numbers, because this is really the crux of everything of where it gets interesting. So the 5.25, the higher interest rate, over 30 years, if you stay with that exact interest rate, that exact mortgage, it's going to cost you $612,000.
Horrifying, actually.
Yeah. Now, granted, also part of her mortgage here is also her HOA fee. So the actual kind of fee that she's paying on her house is lower, but still, in 30 years, she'll pay over $600,000 to live and own that house. On the other side of things, the 4.875 over 30 years costs $597,600. So we're looking at a difference of the lower interest rate over 30 years, saving $14,400. Not an insignificant amount of money. That's a car. So we can look at it in that kind of sense. Over 30 years, you can afford a brand new car that you wouldn't have had to actually afford because of the house. Now, if we take that $3,000 at closing, she still saves $11,000 over 30 years. Not bad, but not as great as what it might sound, because at $11,000, that works out to a little less than $500 a year that she's actually saving. And we're going to dive into the numbers here a little bit more. She wants to go with a higher interest rate mortgage, and there's a couple reasons for it, which are actually well thought out, and good job on thinking through them there, Kate. So she plans to live at this place for 5 to 7 years. If she wants to save that $3,000, she can either put it down on the house, lowering her principal, or she can buy things for the house that allow her to go through and do whatever she wants to get for the new house. Now, if we want to go through and calculate this, we need to figure out what the payback period is. So that $3,000, we have to figure out how fast we can pay that back versus the $40 we're saving or costing ourselves each month. So I'm going to take $3,000 and divide it by 40. That's going to give me 75. That is 75 months is going to take me to break even on getting the lower interest rate. If I take the higher interest rate, I need to be out of that house in 75 months to not cost myself any extra money. That works out to 6 years and 3 months. So if she's thinking 5 to 7 years, she's either making or losing a very small amount of money. If she moves out after 5 years, she saves herself $600 versus if she went with the lower interest rate. If she goes out in 7 years, it's actually going to cost her $360 versus the lower one. So we're not talking about vast sums of money, especially over 5 to 7 years. $360, you can probably make that up pretty quickly over 5 to 7 years, but it's a consideration to do. I think Danielle are still always going to opt for the lower interest rate. Is that right?
Yeah, it always just makes me cringe to think about the interest we're paying on our house. So yeah, we would probably opt for the lower interest rate. But granted, we are a couple. We have, so we have more income to work with, but we also have less risk too. And we're going to be here for a long time. And she's really thinking she's only going to be there for 5 to 7 years. So in that case, I understand where she's coming from. Also, again, as a single person with one income and pretty early on in her life and in her career, she can really use that $3,000, whether it be on furniture, whether it be on putting down towards the principal, or even throwing into a Roth or something. That can really, considering the percentages you can get on $3,000 in a Roth, it actually gives you some money.
You could actually totally negate that difference in interest based off of a Roth contribution every month.
So it might be a way to jumpstart her retirement. So there are a lot of things that she can do with that $3,000 now. And I was actually super surprised by the math there. I would have thought that 0.5% on nearly $200,000 would be more money, but in the end it was only $14,000 over the course of the loan, which not a small amount, but it did surprise me.
Yeah, over 30 years, $14,000 isn't it's not that much.
So again, there are some things she has had to consider. If you keep that money, that $3,000, you can put it towards the principal. You can pay off that house sooner theoretically, and you can, or should I say, you can refinance sooner. And then perhaps lower your interest rate. But at the same time, things have not been going well for interest rates. They've been going up pretty steadily. So you can't really rely on the fact that you're going to get a lower interest rate later down the road. It might not be any better 5 years from now or 3 years from now or whatever. So you are definitely gambling.
Yeah, and I don't think in a gamble sense, usually you're always going to lose. But I don't think there's a disastrous decision to be made here. Overall, you're gambling on short versus long term. Am I going to sell in that 5 to 7 years or am I not? And if I don't, that's okay, but I have to realize I'm going to cost myself a little bit of money. If I don't move out in 75 months, I am costing myself $40 a month in fees that I wouldn't have had to pay otherwise. And those are interest-based fees. So there's some things to consider. But again, if we take the difference and divide it out, that $14,000, which really is $11,000, and we divide that out over 30 years, it's less than $500 a year. So we're talking like $50, $30, $25 a month. It's not a crazy amount of money where you can adjust and live on that without much of an issue as long as you're conscious of your budget.
So yeah, I mean, again, not a bad choice either way. It really just it's what she wants and what she might want to do with that $3,000. So it's about priorities, it's about your lifestyle. So it's just those are the things to think about. So in general, if you guys want us to, answer any questions like this, even if it's just that you don't feel like sitting down and doing the math, we'd be happy to help you out and do it for you.
Math.
So send in, simple questions like this. It's not a big deal. We can do the math for you and explain it out in the podcast. So please keep the questions coming. We've gotten a couple really good ones here. So we're excited to do some research and start answering them soon.
Yep. And I think that's going to do it for this episode. You can find show notes at budgetcouple.com/episode 34. Again, any questions, you can just go to budgetcouple.com and click on our contact page, and we will make sure we get back to you and answer your question on the show. If you have any other questions for us, please let us know. Otherwise, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on our next episode.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Budget Couple Podcast with your hosts, Nate and Danielle. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit budgetcouple.com. Make sure to check out the next episode of the Budget Couple Podcast, where we'll talk more about life, family, and how to afford it. We'll catch you next time.